Hello world, today we're talking about starting off a compost bin. We're going to cover the basics, brown, green materials, what's too big, and what is the right size. Whenever you start a compost bin, you're going to need your brown materials and your green materials. Mix them in the proper ratio, add a little bit of soil to it, and that will help jumpstart the party. I use a 3-to-1 ratio whenever I start off a compost bin and whenever I maintain a compost bin. That's 3 parts brown to 1 part green. One reason why I use so much brown material is this might look like a lot of leaves, but once you put it in this bin and it starts to heat up and do its thing, it just drop. But it's at the height, the mass, the leaves, the size of the pile will just continuously reduce. Plus they're free. People leave these leaves all over the city. So I add them to the compost pile, or I have another bin that's just full of leaves and I allow those leaves to break down and turn into leaf mold. Another great form of compost. Today I happen to be using this super dope bin from Gardeners. I really like the lid, I really like the color. Shout out to my buddy Marco. He said he wants to see if I can make compost in this thing. So this one's for you, my man. When it comes to green materials such as kitchen scraps, it is important that you know one thing. This is too big. Yes, it will break down, but it could take up to a year for this piece to break down. If we were to cut all of our kitchen scraps into pieces this small, that makes it easier for them to break down within our compost bin. Composting, like gardening, is not an overnight process. You have to have patience when it comes to this. All right? Just like when it comes to tomatoes, you throw a seed in the ground, it's not magically going to give you tomatoes the next day. It takes months in order for that process to complete itself. The same thing with composting. We throw our materials in, we make sure that we aerate it, we keep it properly moist, turn the materials, and you will have compost within a few months. I like to use a 3-to-1 ratio of brown materials to green materials. 2-to-1 ratio also works. 1-to-1 ratio also works. You just want to make sure you do not add more green materials to your bin than you do brown materials. So if you live somewhere like Houston, where people are always dumping these bags of leaves on the ground, feel free to pick up the bags of leaves and keep them, because those serve as brown materials for your compost bin that you can keep all year round. How to start the compost bin? I do this. I fill my bin up about 1/3 of the way with the leaves and the brown material. I like to mix some cardboard in because I know how much worms like cardboard. I then bury my green materials like my kitchen scraps and my yard waste. I bury it inside of the brown material. Then I like to put a layer of straw or hay, which has chicken manure on it because it comes from my chicken coop, on top of the green materials. Come back with more brown materials on top of that. And then in order to really get the party started and to introduce the microorganisms into the compost bin, use garden soil. Not bagged soil, but garden soil directly from your garden. This happens to be from my chicken run, so it's also full of manure, which is high in nitrogen. So when we add the soil, when we add our garden soil to the top, we are introducing the microorganisms compost pile. If you didn't know, a compost pile has billions, with a B, billions of living organisms within it. After adding the materials to the bin, weekly, I come out here, grab a little pitchfork or a shovel, and I mix my materials together. Spray it down with a little bit of water to make sure that the moisture level is to where I would like it. Right amount of moisture, right amount of materials, in the proper ratio, your compost starts to cook. The temperature in the middle of the pile gets hot and everything begins to break down. When we turn the compost, what we are doing is removing all of the hot, Randy Moss. What we're doing when we Randy Moss open up the middle of the compost pile and turn it is We are now taking the hot center with all of the organisms, and we're moving them to the outside, moving the fresh ingredients to the middle so that they can cook. That's it. We're constantly turning it, That helps increase the time, or that speeds up the time that it takes for the materials to break down into our finished product, which is that black gold or compost. You do not have to turn your bin. You also don't even have to add moisture to it if you don't want to, but just know it's gonna take over a year or close to a year for it to properly break down and turn into the materials that you want. Start with the bin. I like to keep the cardboard from the Amazon products that I order. Rip it up into pieces, throw it into the bin. I like to use cardboard because I know how much earthworms like cardboard. So what I'm trying to do is to create the perfect environment for the billions of organisms that will help break down all of my materials into compost. Keep the rest of the leaves later on as I add more green material to this bin. So whenever I come to add green material to the bin, I'll make sure I dig down, add the material to the middle, and cover it back up with leaves. The reason why we're wetting the pile is to help activate everything, and it will also help the pile heat up to help get to the temperature that we need to create proper compost. Now I know it looks like a lot of material. I know it looks like you already filled this compost bin all the way to the top. That is not the case. I add this water and you'll see it break down. And as it breaks down, the level will drop from here, here, and here. I will continue to add leaves and green material as I go. But eventually, I will fill it all the way to the top. Then I will mix it, continue to mix it, and as it breaks down, I will access the compost from the bottom. That's why I like to have multiple compost bins in the yard. I can fill one all the way up to the top, and then I can continually compost in another one. Plus, you can never have enough compost. I hope this video was educational. For more information on composting, you can head over to my blog and read a few articles that I have posted. The link to the blog is in the bio.